All right. Good day, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good one out there. So, what are we getting up to today? Well, today we're going to be checking out the Wunderlich plugin from NEOLD. NEOLD's been releasing plugins for the last, 3-4 years, maybe a little bit longer. This is their 6th plugin, and what makes them really a unique company is not only do they emulate very vintage esoteric pieces of gear, they also design and develop one-off pieces of hardware to emulate in the digital domain for us, which is something that I've not heard of any other company doing. So they'll design and develop a hardware unit specifically so they can model it for the digital domain, which is a really interesting process. And this is one of those units. So what is the Wunderlich? Well, let's go over and check out the manual. So Mojo machine. Wunderlich means time traveling in sound. Based on highly esoteric Arcturus tubes from 1932, this one-off experiment is an epitome of vintage vibes and old-school tones. Its unique sound profile grows from the offbeat topology and components of the analog hardware prototype developed exclusively for this plugin. Wunderlich is a tone marvel for creating all kinds of exciting patina and lo-fi textures, a stunning mixing tool for providing that old character whenever a track requires it. Beyond that, it shines as a creative playground for exploring venerable styles, instant Motown, true analog vibes, vintage Mojo galore. Beautiful things are going to happen. So this Wunderlich device is based around this company Arcturus, which developed tubes and developed this Wunderlich tube. You can read up all about that if you want to hear, but these are pretty rare tubes, and they were cobalt blue, as you can see, which was more of a marketing gimmick than anything. So I haven't heard this thing at all yet, so this is going to be a real-time discovery with you folks. We're going to be diving into it together. Before I check out any plugin, before I dive in and have a listen, there's always a checklist that I like to go through to see if there's things on the plugin that I like to see on plugins that are part of my workflow. So let's dive through that list first. And then we'll get into what's on this thing. First up is the GUI, the graphical user interface. How does this thing look? I want plugins to be inspiring to use. I want them to be interesting to use. I want to have fun using them. And the user interface here looks good. Looks like a vintage piece of hardware, which is great. Looks like it's built like a tank, which is awesome. The ability to resize the GUI. We do have resizing options, but they're just to make them bigger, which I don't really want. The normal is quite big. It'd be great if there was an option to get it at least a little bit smaller. If I'm working on my laptop screen real estate is pretty important, but there is resizing options, just bigger ones. AB and undo. This plugin is released through Plugin Alliance, so we have AB, C, D, and 32 levels of undo and redo here, which is standard on all Plugin Alliance stuff, which is great. And we also have a quick reset on the plugin, which is also great. Latency, this thing runs 32 samples of latency, bit of oversampling happening, very efficient. You can use this in production, no problem. I don't know what the system usage is going to be like yet. Usually all the NEOLD stuff and Plugin Alliance stuff is very, very efficient on CPU, so I'm going to guess it's not going to use a ton, but we have our system usage up here, and we'll maybe see if we can get a bunch of instances going and see what that looks like. Meters, love metering. We have a VU meter here. We also have a drive meter over here. But the VU meter, we get input, gain reduction, and output, which is awesome. And also awesome is they tell us in the manual that this unit is calibrated to -14 dBFS equals 0 VU. So we know the operating point for this plugin, which is great. I wish all plugins told us that. The standard is usually -18 dBFS equals 0 VU. This one runs a little bit hotter, so I've calibrated the mixes that we're going to test this out on a little bit hotter, so we're running it where it should be. Auto gain, we do have auto gain compensation on the drive circuit, which is great. So we can push into the saturation of this and not blow our heads up, which is great. We don't have any auto gain on the compressor units or on the overall plugin. We do have a mix knob, which is also great. And then, yeah, the manual being the last thing, quality of the manual. And the manual for this is great. Obviously, we get the history about the company Arcturus and these tubes, and then we get into what every parameter is doing and how it works. They do give us a basic workflow too, which is create vibe with the drive and travel knobs. We'll have a look at what the travel knob is, and then bend tone with the high and low filters, and tweak dynamics with compression. So yeah, what's all on this thing? What does this thing do? Well, it saturates, it EQs, it has a very mute compressor in it, and then it's got this travel knob, which is some filtering and some THD as well. So yeah, it's a Mojo box. It's a vibe box. Drive knob, we get dBs in the bottom, and I'm gonna guess this is percentage up on the top. I'm not sure. Does it tell us what the meter's doing? It doesn't tell us what the meter's doing above it, but it does give us the amount of dBs that we're driving the units, up to 40 dBs of drive, which is 100% saturation, I'm guessing. And then we go into our high and low shelves, and these go to -10 and +10, but if you read in the manual, that's not actually what they're doing. The controls cut and boost range is about -4 to +8. So why it gives us -10 to +10, I'm not sure if the actual amounts are different. From there, they recommend checking out the travel knob. Use the travel screw to blend from a more modern signal left to all the way lo-fi right. The trip is implemented by means of a high cut filter and modifying the gain staging, which results in additional THD. Note, if you push the drive to full throttle and still feel you could use some extra edge, why not benefit from some additional dirt coming from the travel stage? Its parallel high cut filter will help to prevent things from sounding overly scratchy. And then yeah, we have our very mute compressor, which has two threshold knobs, AC threshold and DC threshold. AC threshold controls the amount of peak reduction applied to the incoming signal, basically the threshold. Unlike a typical analog topology, this parameter is decoupled from the input gain, so its effect remains independent from the drive setting, which is really interesting. This is the second compressor this year that's come out that's doing this, which the other one being the P455 MDN sidecar from Pulsar Modular. And originally on the P455, that feature kind of threw me a little bit, that as I drove the unit, I wasn't affecting the threshold of the compressor. And while it threw me for a little bit, it's actually a feature I really like. So it's very interesting that that's on here as well. DC threshold sets the DC voltage offset added before the rectifier tube. This imposes an additional threshold shift and also affects the knee and compression ratio. So at 0, we're at a hard knee at 10:1 ratio, and at 10, we're at a very soft knee at 3:1 ratio. Then we have our timings, so slow, medium, fast for our attack and release times. We can turn the compressor off or on, and we have a sidechain filter, and the sidechain filter is at 40 hertz. We have the compressor gain makeup, and the makeup has some THD to it. It's got some harmonic coloring to it, so you can additionally process tone with the makeup of the compressor. We have the overall clean level of the unit, and then we have a mix knob, which is awesome. So we can set this thing up and then run it in parallel if we want to, which is super cool. So how are we going to test this? Well, we're going to just try it out on some full mixes, and then maybe we'll try it out on some individual elements depending on how it feels. Okay, here we go. So first things first, I want to know if this is affecting my audio right off the rip. And just from looking at the meters, I have two instances of the mix up here, and I can tell just from looking at the meters that it is affecting my audio. So if I do a null test, which I'll just add in an out of phase version of the mix, we're not getting the null. So, which we knew was going to happen just from looking at it. So this thing is affecting the audio right from jump, which is what hardware gear does when you patch it in. I do like in the digital domain a little bit of an option to that not happen right off the rip. But it's pretty subtle what it's doing. I got you, babe. bit of a tubey feel when we kick it in. A little bit of that larger than life. Gets a bit gooey, some extension on the bottom end. Bit of a softening and rounding of the transients. Really subtle though. Very pleasing. Okay, let's see what the drive does. I got you, babe. Yeah. I got you, babe. So pretty great gain compensation. Can you hear it getting a little bit more pushed? Oh, and we can hear the grit coming in there. In the night when you come around, with your taste still. So great gain compensation. We can drive it all the way and not blow ourselves up, which is awesome. So I think we heard it coming in around 15 or so. A little bit more punch as we push into the drive, a little bit more focus, tightening, a little bit more compression on the transients. Got you, babe. And it's a really pleasing drive. Not edgy at all. There's a nice thickness to this. Very pleasing saturation, very thick, kind of mellow but firm is how I want to describe it. That doesn't seem to make sense, but and thick. There's a nice thickness to it. Definitely a vintage feel though. But I guess we can change that with our travel knob, so let's check out our travel knob. So this is set to 50%, so counterclockwise is modern, I believe, and clockwise is vintage. In the night when you come around with your taste still on my mouth. So see if we can hear a difference between the 50% and all the way now. Wild and free, but your eyes, they stay young. Wild and free. Let's let the rough side drain. Let the rough pretty subtle. A little more open, a little more present. Transients are a little clearer on the now. Let's push it all the way to the then. So definitely some filtering happening there. So what this makes me think of is the negative kind of feedback circuit that's in those coils preamps. If you've ever used any of the hardware or the software, I actually haven't checked out the plugin yet, but I've used the actual preamps, and it's kind of what this travel knob makes me think of. So we're getting some saturation and obviously some high cut. So getting into some low vibes. Very smooth though, very pleasant. And then now just a little more open, a little more articulate, creamy, thick. Let's check out our shelves. Very broad, very musical sounding. They stay young, wild and free. But your eyes, they stay young. Real nice life around it. Let's let the rough side drain. Not only do I feel like I'm pushing some top ends, but let's let the I kind of feel like the image is expanding a little bit while I'm doing it. Just seems to be a little bit more life and space around the instruments. So again, with these, we're only getting about 4 dBs a cut and 8 dBs a boost, not minus 10 and plus 10, so a bit deceptive there. Very pleasing sounding though. So very broad, very big. This is exactly what you would think of some shelving filters on a vintage piece of gear. Let's let the rough side drain, 'cause I got you, babe. Very musical sounding filters though, and yeah, they've got a bit of life to them. Very pleasing sounding. Okay, well let's check out our compressor. So pretty grabby. In the night when you come around, with your taste still on my mouth, we're so much older than so threshold is reading the input of the entire signal, is reading the input pre-drive, not post-drive. So we can drive this and that's not going to affect our threshold. Well, it'll affect it. Well, that's not entirely true then, is it? I guess that's not entirely true. There is some interaction between the two. Very grabby, very thuddy. So the DC threshold controls an additional threshold and our ratio in knee. So we're kind of at a medium knee, medium ratio, I guess, right at the moment. Lord knows we all if you play around with the Fairchild plugin at all, there's a DC threshold on that, very similar. It changes the knee kind of in the slope and the ratio of it.
Let's let the rough side drain. Let the rough side drain, dear. Let's let the rough side drain, 'cause I got you, babe.
So this is where I would love some auto gain, just because the interaction of these volumes are really going to jump on me and change on me if I'm changing this thresholds. Changing this thresholds, so I feel like I'm losing where I'm at very, very quickly. Definitely has very mute kind of vibes to it though. Thick, can be a bit grabby.
When you come around with your taste still on my mouth, we're so much older than we used to be, but your eyes, they stay young, wild and free, but your eyes, they stay young.
And true to kind of very mute, where we're bearing the needle a bit here, and it's very pleasing on a bit of a softer knee. Kick the sidechain in here, and that sidechain immediately got rid of some of that thump, some of that kind of grabby thump of the compressor kicking in.
I got you, babe. Tries to stay young. Wow.
So this would technically be the most aggressive that we could get it.
Let's let the rough side drain. Let the rough side drain, dear. Let's let the rough side
Still very pleasing.
drain, 'cause I got you, babe.
Lots of attitude, lots of vibe for sure.
Got you, babe. Yeah. Yeah, I got you, babe.
Hard to use it with the soft knee very minutely. You would have to change how you're hitting this thing. I mean, at 0.2, we're already getting 2-3 dBs of reduction.
In the night when you come around with your taste still on my mouth.
But really nice sounding
So
compressor.
much older than we used to
Definitely a vintage vibe.
be, but your eyes,
Thick.
they stay young.
Kind of syrupy a little bit.
Wild and free, but
Like a
your
thick
eyes,
syrup,
they
not a-
stay young. Wild
Not a, I mean, a bit glossy, but not too glossy.
Let's let the rough side drain.
I do really wish this was all gain compensated though.
Dear, let's let the rough side drain.
Okay, well let's just try setting this up a little bit. So what I am noticing
I got you, babe.
with this working at -14 and being a bit of a hotter plugin, my headroom above it, I'm running out of really quickly. So it would be cool if there was the option to choose your calibration, because -14 feels a little bit hot in a mix setting. Mastering setting, that's cool. I don't need all that much headroom above it, but in a mix setting, I think I would like a little bit more headroom.
A love that tries to stay young, wild and free.
Okay, well, let's just set the whole thing up a little bit and see how it all works together.
Got you, babe. Yeah. Yeah, I got you, babe.
Yeah, you really lose yourself on the compressor because
In the night when you come around, with your taste still on my mouth, we're so much older than we used to be, but your eyes, they stay young. Your eyes, they stay young, wild and free. Let's let the rough side drain.
so it feels really hard to be subtle with the compressor.
Let the rough side drain, dear. Let's let the rough side drain. 'Cause I got you,
But
babe.
I mean, this thing is built as a Mojo box, so
I got you, babe. Oh, yes. We weathered years of falling apart.
definitely a vintage attitude, vintage vibe.
God knows we almost put out that spark.
Really digging the EQ. So that's great. You can really, with that travel knob, if you are getting some edginess, you can totally de-edge that with the travel knob. Okay, so you can be subtle with it on a mix until you start trying to dial in that compressor. Compressor's definitely got some attitude. Well, let's go try it out on some drums or something. See how it fares there. Okay, so I've got this on 7 or 8 instances here in a pretty basic mix. We've got some stereo drums, bass, guitar, organ, vocals, and yeah, we're running 8 instances, and I thought we'd see what kind of CPU hit we're taking. I'm on a MacBook Pro M2 Max with 96 gigs of RAM, so I got a lot of juice available. So those 8 instances are taking up about 13%. So pretty efficient, really. I can't imagine you're going to use this on every track anyways, but gives you a bit of an idea anyways. Okay, let's check it out on some drums. And this whole mix is calibrated at minus 18 dBFS, so we're underfeeding this thing a little bit from where it should be. But very pleasing to break up. Nothing harsh about it at all. And that's what's great about this, is we can get crazy with it, get our compressor working. Which is definitely hard when you're underfeeding it a little bit. Let's just give it some more juice here. Love that you can use this in parallel. Great. Alright, let's check it out on the vocal.
I put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I never knew that you could be so heartless. Take whatever you want, I don't need it anymore. There's nothing here that's gonna get me through this. Never drown when you're sinking, you only swim when you're wrong. And your confession couldn't be more faultless. Put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I hope redemption gets you through this darkness. I put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I never knew that you could be so heartless. Take whatever you want, I don't need it anymore. There's nothing here that's gonna get me through this. Never drown when you're sinking, you only swim when you're wrong. And your confession couldn't be more faultless. Put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I hope redemption gets you through this darkness. I put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I never knew that you could be so heartless. Take whatever you want, I don't need it anymore. There's nothing here that's gonna get me through this.
I haven't heard this drive get unpleasant yet though.
Put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I hope redemption gets you through this darkness. I put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I never knew that you could be so heartless. Take whatever you want, I don't need it anymore. There's nothing here that's gonna get me through this. Never drown when you're sinking, you only swim when you're wrong. And your confession couldn't be more faultless. Put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I hope redemption gets you through this darkness. I put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I never knew that you could be so heartless. Take whatever you want, I don't need it anymore. There's nothing here that's gonna get me through this. Never drown when you're sinking, you only swim when you're wrong. And your confession couldn't be more faultless. Put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I hope redemption gets you through this darkness. I put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in in the door. I never knew that you could be so heartless. Take whatever you want, I don't need it anymore. There's nothing here that's gonna get me through this. Never drown when you're sinking, you only swim when you're wrong. And your confession couldn't be more faultless. Put my sins in the
Compressor sounds
car, I
great
leave
here.
my keys in the door. I hope redemption gets you through this darkness. I put my sins in the car, I leave my keys in the door. I never
Maybe some
knew
guitars?
that you could be so.
Let's get to a chorus. I mean, I wouldn't really compress these guitars. They're pretty compressed already, but pretty pleasing sounding. All right. Well, I think it's time to recap. So what were we doing? Well, we were checking out the new Wunderlich Mojo machine from NEOLD, and it is a tube saturation box. It's got some high and low shelf filters. It's got a very mute compressor in it, and it's got this travel circuit in it, which is a parallel high cut THD filter thing, which sounds great. It's a vibey box, a Mojo machine, aptly named. Definitely that. It's got a real vintage tone and character to it. They actually built the hardware and then emulated it for us, which is very cool. It's a very pleasing sounding box, very hard to make sound bad. Even when you push the drive's really, really pleasing. I really love the EQ. High shelf and the low shelf are really, really stunning. And as you push them, it just feels like your image is getting better. I understand you're getting more gain and everything, but it just feels like there's more life around the instruments when you start using the EQ, which is a really nice feeling. Travel knob's really interesting. It reminds me of, those coil audio preamps with the negative feedback. You just get real modern, clean sound, and then you can go right to lo-fi. Again, really pleasing. Nothing harsh in this. Compressor, very much a very mute style compressor. Sounds exactly like that. Feels exactly like it to use. I get a little bit lost here though, with the gain constantly changing, with the different AC threshold and DC threshold, the timings. It makes it really hard to dial this compressor in because you really lose context because your level's changing dramatically all the time. So it's a little bit hard to hear. On an overall mix, it felt a little bit too much to me. It was hard to make it feel subtle, but certainly when we tried it out on the individual elements here, it sounded great. I think the real power of this plugin is the fact that you can use it in parallel and dial in the tone that you want and then adjust to taste. I could really see myself doing that with individual elements for sure, but probably on a full mix as well, using this on the mix bus, really pushing for that vibe in the mix and then dialing it in as a parallel on the mix, as parallel EQ, parallel compression, parallel saturation on the mix. I think that'd be really cool. You could probably do that in mastering as well. You could probably use this in mastering. Overall, it's a really pleasant, just the box tone of it is really pleasant. It sounds really nice. If you have a track that's looking for more of that vintage vibe, for sure, I think this would do it. But even when you turn that travel knob to modern, it does sound modern. It opens up, the transients get a little bit more open and you get a little bit more presence to it. which is great. But yeah, my one wish for this plugin would be for some sort of auto gain on that compressor. I get a little lost in using it and don't have as much fun with that, with the level constantly changing on me. But it is a very nice, very Muse sounding compressor. This thing does feel like you're pushing into tubes and transformers. It's got a real vibe to it, attitude to it. I do also find the higher operating level for this at minus 14 dBFS to properly be hitting it. I find that a little bit challenging because I work to minus 18 dBFS on all my stuff. So if I want to properly feed into this thing, I don't have just a straight up input gain into it. I have to use something else to get there. So the option to maybe having like a calibration option for what levels you're working at would be really cool. You know, Slate does that, Waves does that, UA does that. That would be a really cool option to have available to us. Those are my only two things really, the working level and the calibration level and the auto gain on the compressor. Otherwise, I think this thing sounds really good. It's definitely got a vibe to it and an attitude and a tone. It's got that vintage tone to it. But I mean, you could use this in a modern production for sure. And the fact that you can use it in parallel, that's where I would see myself using this the most is in parallel. Although those filters, the shelves are really, really stunning. I could see myself just using those on tracks as well. But yeah, Wunderlich from NEOLD. Sounds great. I think it's a great sounding box. You know, bit of a cool parallel processor with everything you need. Compression, saturation, EQ, and some cool filtering on it. Nicely done, NEOLD. I think that's going to do it for me. Thanks for tuning in and checking it out. If you check out the plugin and you're using it, please let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear how you're using it, what you think. And yeah, if you're digging the content, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, keep your notifications turned on. All that stuff really, really helps me out. We're so close to monetizing the channel, which would mean that I can invest more into the channel, which would be awesome. I would love to be able to do that. So any support that you have would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great night.